Taoiseach, all of that will come as cold comfort to Niamh and Anthony, for example, in the homeless hub in my area with 2 children who are now 20 months homeless, 2 Christmases, and their biggest fear is they will still be homeless next Christmas. Or Jennifer, who is in 1 bedroom with her 2 kids, went on the list in 2008. The council lost her application, went back on the list in 2014, and is on the 3-bedroom list with no prospect of anything. And that's the hidden homeless, because of course they're not in the emergency accommodation, right? And it's getting worse. And it's bad for everybody, but it is very particularly bad for children. And this is not acceptable. How long do you have to be in homeless accommodation before you get housed? How long do you have to be in overcrowded circumstances with 2 or 3, in many cases 3 generations, crammed into a house in overcrowding conditions, Dickensian conditions, before you get a house? And I could go on with the list. I had somebody else who's has scoliosis, and an OT report detailing the need for level access living, but has been refused medical priority and told to just go and find a HAP tenancy. Right? This sort of cruel torture that people are being put through with their kids and so on has to end. So what I want to know is, as well as just reeling off the accomplishments and plans, what are we going to do to address that kind of level of suffering, to stop people going into homelessness, to get them out of homelessness when they're in it, and in particular families and children, or people who are vulnerable and unwell, as so many are who are in these dreadful situations.
Deputy Ward,
thanks. Well, thanks very much. I'll start there in reverse order. So thanks, Deputy Ward. I think that's a constructive suggestion. I'll check when the review is due to be completed and see if we can make progress in relation to that old idea of a social housing passport. I'm aware in parts of my own constituency as well, county boundaries sometimes don't reflect the way people live their lives, where they work, where they go to school, and the likes as well. Deputy Murray O'Connor will raise the issue of the need for an upgrade of Bagnallstown wastewater treatment plant. I'll get her an update in relation to that, and I take the point she makes about the importance of having the infrastructure in place in relation to housing. Deputy McAuliffe, I do think it's important to acknowledge the 100,000 homes that have been delivered in the lifetime of government, because while we have more to do, and we all know we have more to do, these are real homes that people are living in, that families are living in, that people who didn't have a home previously now in a home, and I think that's worth acknowledging. In relation to the O'Ballymun shopping centre site and your view that the LDA and Dublin City Council need to come together on that to provide a solution, I'll raise that with the Minister for Housing and ask that he give a view in relation to that as well, but I'm sure that's an issue of concern for your constituents at a time when we need to develop more homes as well. Deputy Barry, in relation to rent pressure zones, so you're factually correct in terms of their the fact that they are due to lapse later on this year. I believe they're working. I believe they're working well. The government hasn't formally made a decision on it, so I don't wish to preempt that. But I see their merit, and I'd like to see a decision made early to provide absolute clarity for people. But it is a matter that requires a government decision. But I think the rent pressure zones have played an important role, and I think the need for them continues. That's my view. Deputy O'Murku, just under the retirement age for firefighters, and that timeline I've heard from a few of my own constituency in relation to that too. I know there's a lot of people getting near the retirement line now who are willing to stay on. I know Minister O'Brien is supportive of this and worked hard to achieve it at Cabinet. I'll talk to him and Minister Donoghue and see when clarity. But I understand how no, I got it. I definitely heard you in relation to that. To Deputy Conway Walsh, raise the issue, of defects in apartments in both the interim scheme and the longer one. I'll send you a written note, but in short, in relation to the interim funding, up until the end of March, 128 applications are being progressed. are being progressed across 26 local authority areas representing over 13,000 residential units. Approximately 80% of the units affected are located in the 4 Dublin local authority areas, but I am aware of reports saying that there's been difficulties with local authorities. My understanding is the Minister O'Brien, met as recently as yesterday with representatives of the local authority fire service and the City and County Managers Association to discuss the matter. So I'll get an update for you on how that meeting went. In relation to the full remedial works, which you asked about also, work is advancing to draft the required legislation, which will include the scope, the eligibility and the conditions of the remediation scheme. It's expected the draft legislation to be published later this year and the statutory scheme be in place shortly after that. And Minister O'Brien is working on the legislation. He's seeing it as a matter of priority, whilst also wanting to make sure that we get a scheme that is fit for purpose. But I'll send you more detail in a note. Deputy Tobin, thank you for providing me with that information, which I'll certainly familiarise myself with in terms of the trawl, for want of a better phrase, that you've done in terms of vacant local authority homes in the county and the comparison between turnaround times for private and public. I can accept that there can be some gap, but certainly the difference that you've outlined is very significant at a time when we urgently need more accommodation. So thank you for the constructive engagement on that. I'll talk to the Minister for Housing and I'll come back to you in writing on the issue as well. Deputy O'Callaghan, the need to regulate the management companies, and where are we at in terms of the draft section 18 and 19 of the Multi-Unit Development Act with the Minister for Justice and indeed fulfilling our programme for government commitment. I'll speak with the Minister and get a timeline for you on that and come back to you if that's okay. Deputy Wynne, additional emergency accommodation needed in County Clare. Let me talk to the Minister and the local authority through the Minister and see what more we can do. You've highlighted some progress that's been made, but not enough in terms of its composition as well. Deputy O'Sullivan, I'm not personally aware of that situation in relation to IPAs, and I'm very aware that government policy is to move away from reliance on the private market. Now, we have to be honest and upfront about the times that will take, but I'm not aware of that, but I'll make myself very aware of it. I'll talk to Minister O'Gorman and I'll come back to you in writing on the issue as well. Deputy Boyd Barrett and Deputy Murphy both raised the issue of homelessness and indeed highlighted a number of cases of Niamh and Anthony, their children, of Jennifer and 2 children, and a number of other cases as well. And look, while I think you said you can stand up here and ream out facts and statistics and whatever else, and not just to do that, I mean, I would point out though that behind those facts and statistics is progress being made in relation to social housing. Last year we saw over 22,000 social homes. Last year we saw over 22,000 social homes at various stages of construction, and we saw 12,000 social homes being delivered through various means through both our local authorities and our approved housing bodies. That was the largest level of delivery in many decades. I think you have to go back to the 70s. We've also provided a land acquisition fund with €125 million in funding to the Housing Agency as an initial level of funding, because we do want to provide solutions for Niamh, Anthony, Jennifer, and crucially for children. We did see in the monthly figures a very small drop in the number of children in emergency accommodation, a very small drop in the number of families in emergency accommodation, but it's nowhere near where it needs to be, and that's why we will continue to look at all forms of different housing options, including an acceleration in relation to social housing.